Hey everybody, I'm going to talk for just a few minutes about what happened to Charlie Kirk today. And this is the third video that I've had to make in the past few months about some shocking act of terror that's happened. And sadly, all three relate in some way to our divisions around politics and religion in America. A few months ago here in Minnesota, a guy who claimed to be a Christian shot two Democratic lawmakers and their spouses in their homes, killing two of them. And then last month, we had the Catholic school shooting here in Minneapolis. And now this, the murder of a young man who is at the heart of our debates about faith and politics in America. And at the time that I'm recording this, we don't even know who did it. But I do know that what happened to Charlie Kirk today was a radically evil act. And I'm praying for his family and his loved ones. So right from the start, I just need to tell you that I have a zero tolerance policy for any extremist comments that people might put under this video. If you have to ask yourself, will Pat think this is extreme? Then just don't type it. Please just take the night off from commenting. But in general, what I mean is any comment that suggests any kind of support for this horrific act, or on the other hand, any comment that blames this act on people who vocally oppose the MAGA movement. I already saw one comment on another video of mine from a person blaming me for what happened and asking me if I'm satisfied. So I blocked that person and I reported them to YouTube. I know that everyone's emotions are running really high right now. So I'd recommend that we all err on the side of caution with our words right now. But here's what that doesn't mean. That doesn't mean that we should stop debating what's happening in our country. We need more debate about the direction of our nation, not less. Because if we shut down debate and we silence disagreement, then that just empowers the people who would use force instead of words. And Charlie Kirk himself engaged in vigorous debate. That's what he was known for. And I disagreed with almost everything he said, but he debated his ideas publicly, and he loudly criticized the things that he disagreed with. And even though I disagreed with him, that's what we're supposed to do in America. I was watching Nicole Wallace report on the events today, and she said several times, violence is not politics. And she's exactly right about that. Where violence is present, politics ends. And I've said this several times, but I'll say it again. One of the biggest misunderstandings that people have about the work that I'm doing here is that they think it's mostly about politics or mostly about religion, but that's not it. This channel has always been about de-radicalization. And I'm doing this work because I have a pastoral concern for our nation and specifically for the people that I used to pastor who are being more radicalized every day. But where does that radicalization come from? I think it comes from lies, first and foremost. When people are lied to repeatedly on a grand scale, I think that messes with our minds and it makes us susceptible to radical ideas. And abuse is another thing that leads to radicalization. When people are abused or, on a grand scale, even whole classes of people, they're bound to react in some extreme ways. And then in a big picture sense, injustice leads to radicalization. And so that's why I've been speaking out about authoritarianism. Because authoritarianism, everywhere we see it, is built on lies. It's built on abuse of the other. It's built on injustice. And authoritarians come to power through radicalization of their followers. And you can study this stuff all around the world. That's just how this stuff works. So the work that I'm doing is specifically aimed at de-radicalizing my people, the people that I've been most connected to in my life, conservative Christians. I didn't get into this work because of, left-wing politics or anything like that. I got into it because I saw what was happening to my own people, and I had no choice but to speak out about it. And I've been warning for years that our nation is becoming more radicalized. So on a political level, I did leave the Republican Party because of it. And on a faith level, I did leave the evangelical Christian movement because they're steeped in radicalization. And those two things are coming together in a really bad way. And I've been speaking out about it. So I've been begging for people to elect leaders who won't fan those flames. So in the same way that I won't directly blame Donald Trump, and I won't directly blame anyone else for the acts of violence that some person does, I'm also not going to call these random acts of violence. Like, if you look up stochastic terrorism, STOCHASTIC, stochastic terrorism, then you'll have an idea of what I'm talking about. If we create the conditions for radicalized violence in our culture, we can't predict where it's going to strike, but we can predict that it will strike, and it will increase in frequency until we deal with the conditions that are feeding it. So just like I said in my video last month about the Catholic school shooting, every one of us contributes to the conditions of our culture. And so this isn't about pointing fingers tonight. It's not. I'm saying every one of us contributes to the conditions of our culture. And we can either be contributing to make things better or worse. And those with the most power and those with the loudest microphones bear more of the responsibility. So like I've said a lot, this is what I'm trying to do to take down the temperature in the nation. Three things that I've repeated a lot on this channel. I'm committed to speaking the truth, to protecting the vulnerable, and working for justice. Because again, radicalization thrives in an environment of lies and abuse and injustice. And once that gets going, it's not going to be contained to only one side. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this happen on every end of the political spectrum right now. To every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So we need everyone who has a voice to speak out against the violence. But we also need to speak truth in everything, even when that looks like an argument. When lies and injustice are rampant, arguments are a good thing as long as we're not dehumanizing each other and as long as we're trying to get the nation somewhere better. Speaking the truth will always make people angry, but we need that prophetic role in society, and we need people to speak out against lies because people get unbalanced when they're fed lies. So when we tell the truth, it might look like we're picking a fight, but it's the opposite. We're bringing sanity and balance to the nation every time we tell the truth. And the same goes for protecting the vulnerable and working for justice in general. Oppression and injustice lead to radicalization. So like I talked about last week, despair on a grand scale, that can lead to the sorts of violence that we're seeing lately also. So I'm just going to repeat what I've been saying all along. Whatever problems we think we have in America, we're not going to kill our way out of those problems. Every act of violence begets another act of violence. So at a bare minimum, every one of us has to speak out against these sorts of evil acts. But it goes deeper than that. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But when he talked about peace, he wasn't talking about only an absence of violence. He was talking about shalom, which means more than that. It's a state of flourishing. It's a state of justice where everyone's able to thrive, where people are able to coexist despite their disagreements, where we're all able to live the lives we were created to live. No act of violence is going to bring that about. And we can't create enough safety systems to protect everyone from these sorts of random acts. I mean, of course, we need to do something about guns. Of course, we need to care for people's mental health. But each one of us also has to do our part to build a culture that serves everyone. And I don't know everything that needs to happen, but for myself, I'll just keep saying the same thing. I'm committed to speaking the truth, even when it makes people angry, even when it goes against the powerful. And I'll continue to do my part to protect the vulnerable and to work for justice. And I think we're in for a really rough ride. I think the consequences of what happened today are going to be far reaching. And I'm just begging for every person with a position of power and authority, and every person with a voice, to work toward honest solutions to our problems and to speak the truth. That's the only way that we start to get better as a country. And for those who pray, please pray for everyone involved, and please pray for our nation right now. And thanks for listening.